Beautiful. All right, so I will facilitate the session, and then we can get rolling from there. Let's start. Has anyone ever been to an ed camp before? All right. So we know all the rules about the ed camp, how if at any point in time you want to get up and roll, you can do that. Nobody's going to take offense to it. And then it's really a conversation versus a presentation. Yes. You want the, it's in 104, the one with Jay Billy. I forget. Over there. So, what is social justice?
Why we're here.
So you're all here to learn stuff? Yes. Does anyone ever teach about social justice or anything? Yes. Yeah. So what do you teach about?
I've done workshops. I used to run a LGBTQ women's group.
Beautiful.
And then another women's group.
Nice.
Workshops on enthusiastic consent and
enthusiastic consent. That's fantastic. I like that. Good. So you're gonna be very knowledgeable for this. So if you ran stuff, I guess we could ask, hello, are you here for social justice? They flip flop. 104 is over there.
What is this one?
Social justice.
Okay, well, I like that one too.
Yeah, no worries. So what are we here to learn?
Strategies on how you're going to address with the kids about social justice?
Yes.
I'd say like my students is something that my students care very passionately about, and I was interested in hearing how other people like incorporate it into the school day.
Okay. So does anyone, you said you teach to students about it?
Yeah, well, when I was an undergrad, I would do peer workshops, and I try to bring whatever I can into my classroom. I'm student teaching now.
Okay, and what grade level?
I'm with juniors and seniors here in New Brunswick.
Okay, and what subject matter?
English.
English.
Composition and lit.
Okay, so how do you bring that into your class?
I try to take the writings of revolutionary writers, and this is your assignment. So recently I did one essay by Alice Walker, one essay by June Jordan, and then had them compile autobiographical information.
All right.
The authors.
Where was the social justice aspect? I have no idea.
Oh yeah, sorry. So Alice Walker in this one essay was writing about how Langston Hughes's economic politics, which were sort of like socialist and like sympathizing with the Soviet Union in a time when it was like red scary, how that legacy has like sort of been taken away. So sort of like Langston Hughes was a poet who almost like all students are sort of familiar with because his poetry is brought in a lot and anthologized a lot. And the essay was about how his socialist politics have been deliberately erased.
Okay, and why were they erased?
Wow. It's easier to just sort of take like
so to sanitize them,
kind of like a fuzzy warm.
Like they did to Martin Luther King.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay. Anyone else teach anything about race or gender in their classes? Yes.
So I'm also a student teacher, also English for 11th and 12th here at New Brunswick High School. Not as extensively, but I'm trying to begin to incorporate it. So we were teaching Pride and Prejudice, which is a lot about gender, but more in like the 1800s for only really England. So I was using News ELA to bring in articles about like gender and specifically also race and how that works with power structures. And try to show that connection. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, are you familiar with News ELA?
Yeah.
How they level the stuff? It's really cool. Okay. What do you teach, sir?
I'm a dean of students.
Okay, where?
Middle school in South Florida.
Okay. So you want so you deal with discipline when there's issues, and then they come to you. And do you see a higher rate of students of color coming to you than others? I don't know anything about this. This is social justice.
Okay.
And the other one's across the room, whatever, changing schools. We don't want to change schools. We just want to So do you see that as an issue, this school to prison pipeline? Like, is that something you're aware of at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So this is social justice?
Yes.
Hi, you're in my room. Nice. Just so you know, yes, just so you know, this is being recorded. If you're uncomfortable with that, then I just want to tell you up front, we're there, and it is mic'd up, and maybe people online will jump in, other educators, I didn't put it out there. So we were talking social justice, how to get it in the classroom, why. So we had a dean of students here trying to figure out how does this affect his students. There we have somebody who's pretty familiar with the LGBTQIA community, talking about what she does and their student teachers. And then a lot of people, what is social justice? How do I get it into the class? Why is it important? So that's to get you all where we need to be. Does anyone who just walked in, you teach any social justice issues in class?
Yes.
Okay, do you want me to give you a minute to get settled and then come back, or are you good right now? Can you tell us what you do?
What do I do?
Like, first, what do you teach, and then how do you bring in
I
social
teach
justice?
second grade.
Okay, so some people might say that those kids are too young to learn about social justice.
No, they know what player is.
Okay.
They know what equity is
And how do you bring that into the classroom?
through literature.
All right, do you have any examples, like any books or anything?
We just read a book about Swami Sotomayor.
Nice. And that's huge, right, with kids seeing other kids of color in the actual book, authors of color. That's a really big one. And we look at our libraries, a lot of them are written by white dudes. And then how do we bring in other people into the classroom? Did you ever read Donovan's Word Jar?
Yeah.
That's a really good one. I bought for my son at home. He likes that. He's in first grade. So that's a good one. But that's one of the big points of social justice, is that when we look at the material we're teaching and who's writing the material in any subject area, what do these people look like? And overall, it's white men. And we know, obviously, there's a big world of very intelligent people. We don't just need white men's resources. Anyone else teach anything with social justice they want to talk about?
I'm
I'll start. You go.
I'm a principal at a regional alternative school. And there's a lot of talk about social justice, especially for some of those kids who have come from their district and have been labeled because of behavioral issues and for whatever reason. And they get labeled, and it's very difficult to be successful in the regular high school, the regular setting, and then they're put into an alternative school. That's not to absolve their behavior, because they own their behavior. But there are a lot of things that when they come to us, we see that probably could have been handled differently, not just a lesson in the classroom, but the way that we treat people who may have made mistakes in the past, who may have had some behaviors that don't fit the ideal student. So it's I just started there. I just left a district that had, if you talk about social justice and you talk about the achievement gap, we had 243 black students in the building. Most freshmen don't take AP, so this number's a little skewed, but we only had about 12 black students in advanced placement courses.
Which is a huge issue. So why is that set up when we talk about systemic racism?
Mm-hmm.
Is that because of labeling? Is that because they don't feel comfortable? Is there not a push? I mean, there's a lot of things. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm a principal here in the K-8 school, and I want to follow up with the gentleman who just preceded me about these students who are tagged. And we have a program that we call the untagged kids. So these kids who come in with these tags, we try to give them the skills and the availability to get that tag, that label off of them, and to just start fresh, get them with the fresh label. So I think it's important that we nurture these young men and ladies that are similar programs to have might have that same stigma attached to it.
Now, does anyone do restorative practices or restorative justice in here? Has anyone heard of that?
I have not heard of it.
Okay, so restorative justice, especially for like deans, principals, is one of the best ways to talk and get social justice in your school. It's the idea of suspending our kids outside of school, is creating that school to prison pipeline, and it's not doing anything to correct the behavior. You're punishing a kid, then they come back, we don't deal with the issue, there's unresolved conflict all over the place with either students, with teachers, everything in there, and it's trying to find an alternative to simply suspending a student. And a lot of times people go, well, that means you're not giving kids consequences. And it's not about the not giving them consequences, it's about trying to find alternatives first and building those relationships. So a restorative practice, one of them is circles, like we're doing right now. So a lot of teachers will come in, you'll go and you'll talk. You just put out a prompt in the beginning of class, and I teach phys ed and health. We come in, we do my instant activity, then we get in a circle, and I give a kid the chance to share anything they want, or I give them a prompt. So I'd say, share what you did this weekend, or or share anything you want, or what's the last thing you read. So that way they have the choice. And that way you're building relationships. And circles are really big with conflict. When there's a conflict, then you get in a circle, either with the kids at the conflict, the teacher with the conflict, and the students, and you're able to talk about it. So there's not that unresolved, issues. So it's really based on relationships first, then dealing with what the issue is. Then they do what's called repair the harm. So that's the key. So whatever was the issue, when they get back in the classroom, whether you sent them out or whatever it is, when they come back, they repair that harm. And it's resolved. So let's say the kid cursed at me as the teacher. So the kid and I would have the conversation of, listen, it bothered me when you cursed at me, not because of the actual word, but the lack of respect that I received from you when I don't give you a lack of respect, right? When you talk, I listen to you, I don't yell at you, all those things. And you talk about how to repair the harm. And then sometimes there's consequences on top of that. So you might get different suspensions, you might get the 10, you might get whatever. But the idea is that the conflict is resolved and that the harm has been repaired. So if you get a chance, there's a book called The Little Book of Restorative Justice. It's very cheap. That is something I would really look into. And it's sort of trying to figure out, how do we stop the school prison pipeline that's there, this punitive. You do something wrong, we suspend you, you lose class time, you get set back. There's research that shows every time you suspend a kid outside of school, you set them back X amount of time. I've been talking a lot. Who else?
So I have a question with
Yes.
that. So we have a system called ISS, and I don't know if other schools have that too.
Uh-huh.
So this sounds like it could be a place where we send kids, they're not suspended out of school, but they're in school. So this restorative process that you're talking about, do you need to have certain facilitation skills to be able to?
You would need facilitation skills, absolutely. And it's a step beyond, like ISS is a consequence, right? So you got green slipped out of class X amount of times, or you did this, you got demerits, now you're in school suspension. But we never addressed what the problem was or repaired it. So court might say to the kid, you were late to class 20 times, whatever, but they didn't repair the harm. Like, what was harm caused by the action? How did you repair it? And that's the difference between just the consequence and more of the restorative practices.
And I think the challenge with that is having, and I don't sugarcoat, is having adults being able to look past behavior and be able to do that. There are a lot of adults who just want to react to the behavior, and worse, there are adults who want to react to the symptoms of a disability instead of digging down deep and making that connection to it. And then what you have is that acrimonious relationship that causes, you have green slips, I guess, in your building.
Yeah,
that cause the discipline referrals. And then what happens? The kid feels that school is not a safe place. And to go along with restorative justice, I'm doing some research on the trauma-informed classroom. What has caused not just the initial, that behavior for being late or whatever, cursing at the teacher, what is going on in that child's life that is causing this behavior? And how do we make them feel safe? Because I don't care how big, bad, and tough any kid here at New Brunswick is, or Camden, or Upper Montclair. It doesn't matter. Kids want to be safe. And how do they feel safe? And if they don't feel safe, that's when they start to do some behaviors that kind of irritate us a little bit. And how do we bounce back, right? So quick story, I had, years ago, I was in the middle school. I had a young lady who had severe trauma, was in our BD program. Did you exit? No, I didn't. And, she had some serious behaviors, and there were things that we had to suspend. And I said one time, don't worry, when you come back, we'll still love you. And I got a visit from a member of the staff saying, was it true that you said that that you love her? I said, no, I never said I love her. I said, when she returns, we'll still love her. Yeah, that's rubbing some people the wrong way. So I said, well, I might be rubbing the wrong people the right way, right?
This is Madeline, right?
Yeah.
Same place where we fired our hugging principal?
Yeah.
Yeah, my kids go to Madeline.
Oh, okay.
And under you were admin. So I remember, I know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
and we fired a principal because the news was involved. He banned hugging in the school.
Yeah.
Right?
Which we need. Physical touch is a human need. It's a necessity.
If you ever Google it,
Mhm.
the hugging principal,
Yes.
he got fired because it caused such a stir because the
Sure.
media was there, kids were interviewed because kids were hugging too much in the hallways. We have a very diverse, multiracial population. I mean, and everybody gets along and lives in harmony. It's like no place I've ever seen that there is just the kids, everybody, no matter where you're from, what color you are, they get along fantastically, fabulously. They're all friends. They don't see in color. And this was like a big, huge, take out all that stuff that we've been working so hard. You know, it was
The only thing
huge.
is, we do see color. So that's one of the things, again, the more you get into social justice and you learn what's going on, like when you roll to a traffic light, you know when it's red, green, and yellow. Like I know that people in the room, there's black people and there's white people, and that makes us uncomfortable to say that, right? And I'm saying what you mean, and please forgive me if I'm putting words in your mouth, is they don't treat people differently because of their color.
Okay, yes,
Not that we don't
understand.
recognize, and that's the
No.
difference that a lot of white people make mistakes. And going to your thing about love, that's a white culture thing. We get nervous about saying we love people,
Mhm.
and also we get nervous about touching people, and that's really that's a white culture. Like when I go to Puerto Rico with that side of my wife's family, their arms are around each other,
Right.
strangers who never met before. Like my grandfather was asking directions, and he has his arm around this guy. He never met him before. So that's kind of a part of our culture that we
I
have to
agree
do.
with you, and I don't think we can advance change quick enough until people are comfortable having a conversation. There will be white people who are afraid to say there are black people in the room, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But you have people, I mean, I've been in meetings where we're going over positive behavior support strategies, and it's supposed to be this whole thing about positivity, and there's a white teacher who says, we used to have a black vice principal, and she was able to talk to, I said, please don't use the pronoun. Please don't use that pronoun right now. And they were about to use the pronoun, talk to them. Okay, so when we have that, whether you want to call it covert racism or overt racism, until we are able to have those conversations, and a lot of the Twitter chats that I have about this, we really need more white educators to join the fight of the achievement gap.
Yeah.
Right? There are a lot of black and Hispanics who are on the front lines, and rightfully so. But then when you have that conversation in your school, that's why I was so excited that I didn't even know it was you, bro. We know each other for a long time. I was so excited to have this conversation because I wanted to see, the blend of people in here. And are we willing to put that conversation on the table and say, you know what, there's a reason. If you go back 50 years, the data has not really moved. Right? Our achievement gap has not really closed significantly enough to say, holy shit, we're doing great work. Why?
We're not doing great work. That's why. I mean,
I just want to tag on to what you're saying is I agree. I think that the hard work has to be done in this conversation. We need to take a step back from how our children are living day to day and look at the lives of teachers. And the conversation is challenging, it's very hard, it's very uncomfortable. But until that hard work is done, we're not really going to move forward. We're going to talk around the issue of race, social justice, in particular in light of our current national, atmosphere, all right? It's kind of blowing up. And that's the hard work that has to be done. And it's okay to talk about race. It's okay to, bring these issues out because this is how the change is going to happen.
I just think to your earlier point, I don't think there's anything wrong with identifying race. That's a part of who we are as a democracy and a republic. I think when we talk about justice and injustice, the one issue as it pertains to injustice we need to address is the injustice of perspective. And oftentimes we look at students socioeconomically, test scores, and that we identify that as the sum total of who they are, as opposed to that's a part of their intellectual, social, emotional journey. as opposed to saying, you know what, this student is 2 grades behind reading ability, this student has a such and such PARCC score. So as a result, in 2017, we're going to craft an image, a perspective of this individual or individuals, and they can never possibly attain certain heights later on. That's a matter of perspective, equally as the same way whether we should be able to identify women in the room, African Americans in the room, Latinos, etc. So when people say to me, I don't see race, I don't see different, I don't have a problem with that because that's an oxymoron. Because you can't differentiate your classroom setting if you see all kids the same. You have kids with certain level 504s, IEPs, etc. So difference is a part of who we are. But part of the issue, though, is our discomfort in identifying those differences and how we create our specific instructional agendas, assessment agendas to address those differences that are our norm.
And sometimes it's language that's really hard. Do I say the wrong thing? Well, do I say African American or Black? People struggle with that. And then I have a friend who's Haitian. And she's like, well, don't call me African American because I'm Haitian. So that's why I go with Black. But if I was talking to somebody who's Black and said, please address me as African American, then I'm going to go with what they want. So a lot of it goes back to, are we doing the work, the hard work of learning? Did we go back and learn the history? Did we go and understand what has led us up to today? Because we can't have the conversation about what's wrong today unless we understand what happened in 16, 17, and then what happened all the way leading up to that. And those are the conversations we want to be involved in, but I can't if I don't have my historical knowledge. And that's an issue a lot of people have. They haven't done the work, or they expect the work to be brought to them. And it's like, listen, if it's important to you, you have to go. Or lurk. Like, go on Twitter chats and lurk. Miss in the back?
Yeah, so I was just gonna kind of agree with what Patricia said and then sort of the conversation that was happening. I think as teachers, it's easier for us to reflect on what we did in our lesson and our learning goals, but we don't incorporate our students' differences and who we are when we reflect on our students. And so, I mean, I just feel like, especially when you're in a district where there's lots of students of color, like New Brunswick, we almost feel like we don't need to speak about that because we're already here doing the work. But I think that's misguided. And I think that conversation needs to happen. We don't necessarily feel comfortable as schools. I'm a vice principal, and I have to say that I do feel uncomfortable too bringing these conversations up in a school setting, just because we haven't been able to do that. We talk about achievement, we talk about test scores, we talk about reading.
Hey, good morning, Ed Campers. That's right, I'm everywhere.
When we talk about these topics.
The first session will be ending in about 5 minutes. Just wanted to let you know that the first session will be ending in about 5 minutes.
And if you want to go deeper in this, that's why we left the session board open for third and fourth, so we can go back if this is something you're interested more in. Somebody can put it up in the third and fourth session, and we can talk more in this. This is going well. Someone over there, then in the back. Hi, Miss.
So I think that, you know, we've all contributed a lot to it, but like as a day-to-day practitioner in my building, I need the language. Like, what do I say to colleagues when I hear the wrong language being spoken, or I hear kids being demeaned, or, you know, you just feel the undertone of it. It's that them, that separation. I don't have the words. I don't really know. I'm willing to take the risk and be uncomfortable, but I don't really have the words to, you know, challenge them, try to enlighten them, try to, you know, bring a sense of, do you understand what you're saying to this kid? Like,
so what resources do we have to help her?
There is a book that we're working our way through. It's Glenn Singleton, Courageous Conversations.
Okay.
There's 4 agreements that he has.
Excuse me, can you repeat that? I didn't hear the book.
I apologize. It's Courageous Conversations, Glenn Singleton. And in the framework, he starts out by saying that there's 4 agreements that you adhere to. One is to stay engaged, you know, in a conversation that you may have. The second would be to experience discomfort, knowing that these aren't easy conversations. It's very awkward, but it's okay, you know, and if we agree that we're going to be uncomfortable, you know, then we can know how to proceed. Third is to speak your truth And that's very important, that everyone has to share their experience and lend themselves to the experiences of others, and then accept and expect that there is no resolution right away. So just like this session's gonna end, we don't have we don't have a resolution, but that's okay. We know that the conversation will continue. Courageous conversation.
In the back?
Yes, I'm just gonna reflect on opening day here in New Brunswick, where we had one of our current students who's sitting as a board member, talk about a teacher that felt that made a difference in her life. And she said how this teacher, Ms. Patel, made a difference in accepting her and made a difference in helping her. And after that, our superintendent of schools, Dr. Johnson, spoke about two things, two types of teachers. The teachers who made a difference in your life and the teachers who made you feel bad. And we have to decide which kind of teacher we want to be. Which one do we want to be? Do we want to be someone who makes a difference, or someone who the student says, there was a horrible teacher, they taught us, or they made us feel bad? And that's the difference.
Another resource is Dr. Endon, for all the white teachers who teach in the hood and everyone else too. That book is really good. I mean, if you connect with me on Twitter, there's lists I will give you of it. And if you're willing to do the work, that's step one. Well, maybe step two. Realize that there's an issue with step one. Step two, do the work. And there's Twitter conversations, there's book studies I've done with people. And then the last part, like you talked about, those agreements are fantastic.
And I mean, another thing you can do is ask the black person. Just talk to, or Hispanic person, just, have that conversation with a colleague or someone that you work with, and, just say, I'm not comfortable speaking with or about an African-American student or a Hispanic student, and share that discomfort. And people will talk and just share, what they may prefer to be called, or how you could address a situation, or just even cultural things. Like, we had a situation in our school where it was more staff related than student, but it had to do with sweet treats, and we bring them in on Thursdays. And it turns out to be it's open to everyone originally, but then it became a small group. And the intent was that just the people in that group got the treats. Someone that wasn't in the group, an African American male, went in, got something. He wasn't on the list, and some people in the group got upset about it. So then signs went up: no one's allowed to get sweet treats unless you're in the sweet treat group. And for some of the black staff members, that kind of triggered thoughts back to colored only, those kind of things. But no one really wanted to talk about it. So I brought up, I'm the principal of the school, we brought up at the staff meeting, just had a conversation about it. And it was uncomfortable. It was not, what we like to talk about, but it had to be addressed. And sometimes you just have to put those uncomfortable topics out there to get it discussed and have the conversation. You're going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to be easy and fun, but you have to have those conversations. You have to start somewhere.
But you look at your PD, how often do we get culturally relevant PD? Do we bring in an expert who has the language, who can understand what's going to happen before it happens, and kind of figure out what's going on? I know my school's never done that.
Well, I just, it's cliche, but we're all in this together, right? So there's, everybody has certain perceptions and understandings. When I sit with a young black male or young black woman and I say the words, does the world need more powerful young black men and women? Yes or no? Their response to me is, why are you asking me that? Why wouldn't I ask you that? Why wouldn't I ask a young black male or a young black female, do we need more powerful, just like I would say, do we need more young, powerful black, Hispanic, black, white, females and males. So if we're not having that conversation all around, then sometimes even when you are working, do you think when you're having that tough conversation, you may get a little frustrated. You may get a little like, did I say the wrong thing? No, you say the wrong thing when you say the wrong thing. When you're trying to help a kid, regardless of what they look like, they'll know you're trying to help them. And then there are times where it kind of backfires. I mean, I had a parent call me and say, I don't understand why you have this racial overtone with my child. I said, I don't have a racial overtone with your child. I have a success overtone with your child. I want your child to be successful, and they're exhibiting behaviors that are not going to make them successful. I don't care if they're a polka dot. So if you're uncomfortable with that conversation, I'm sorry, man, but you know, I need these kids to be successful, and they're in a last chance place. I got kids on anklets, right? So if I'm not willing to have that conversation, and the parent, you know, is not willing, then who's having the conversation? The streets. So it's powerful stuff. So keep up the good work, everybody.
And like everything else, it all comes
Thank
out of
you,
relationships. I would love to talk about this more. So if anyone wants to put it on the board for a third or fourth session, this is G108. I'll actually get that right this time. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you.